Hello. New format. That's weird. Now where was I? Oh, that's right. Doom Coalition. Hi everyone, TARDIS Guy 123 here, and today, as you have probably gathered, I am reviewing Doom Coalition. This is the latest 8th Doctor box set from Big Finish, and we usually get 2 per year now. So yeah, obviously, new format. What's going on here? Well, basically, I decided I needed to change a bit more, needed to diversify, I guess. And this was the best way for it, I think. I did think through quite a few different ideas. But yeah, this is basically how it's going to be from now on, hopefully. Do tell me if you like it, do tell me if you really absolutely hate it. But yeah, hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. So then, Doom Coalition. It's the front, it's the side, it's the spines, it's the back, it's the top, and here's the bottom. Let's start off by taking them out of the box, which is more difficult than it should be. Starting off with the 11. Here is the front. Here is the spine, here is the back, here are the insides, behind the disc, and inside the booklet. So then, what about the 11 itself? Well, the basic plot is that the Doctor and Liv have been called back to Gallifrey, although in Liv's case it's technically not being called back, but you get what I mean. And basically, the reason they're there is because the 11, this guy, also the guy it's named after, has escaped, and the Doctor basically needs to prevent his escape. And that's basically the setup for this story, and that's sort of like the setup for the entire box set, really. So like hunting down the 11 throughout the 3 following stories. So let's start off by talking about the title character himself, and that is, of course, the 11, played by Mark Bonar. He is an absolutely wonderful villain, he truly is, and this is him at his greatest, to be honest. He gets a really good introduction story here, even though technically he's met the Doctor before. This is the first time we, the audience, have been introduced to him, and he is superb. Mark Bernard really does give this villainous, really strong villainous, but also mad villainous as well. Really mad, but not sort of like mad bananas like Messiah's. But mad in a good way. Mad when you actually believe that he could really torture someone for 1,000 days just for the sheer fun of it. You know, he is a really dark character, but also a fun character to listen to as well. I mean, there's a lot of sort of like internal dialogue where he's literally talking to himself, because of course the main idea behind him is that he has all these different incarnations in his head, his past incarnations, or like speaking to him, trying to gain control, and while he is the dominant force overall, you know, he does sometimes have those moments where he just starts talking to himself, and they are very, very good moments at that. And you know, I was wondering how they were going to sort of like portray this whole idea of him having multiple multiple incarnations inside his head. I was wondering, are they going to go sort of like have different ones take over at different times? But no, the way they did it with sort of like them all just talking to him from time to time really does work. I say, oh boy, I didn't really think it worked at all. I think it really did work though. Be silent! Trying to review here. Now let's move on to the Doctor himself, Paul McGann, who is, of course, simply wonderful. I mean, could you really expect less from Paul McGann? He's funny, he's very serious when he needs to be. Yeah, he's just a very, very good Doctor, and if you haven't started with the 8th Doctor yet on Big Finish, or if you sort of like picked up a couple here and there, but you sort of like want to get into the flow of his releases, then Doom Coalition is the perfect place to start, because it's sort of like a new beginning. And while we do have Liv Chenka back in this, there isn't anything really carrying over from her previous arcs. That's all tidied up, so it really is a fresh start. Speaking of Liv Chenka, played by Nicola Walker, who has actually had 2 TV series, police dramas, running on quite recently, River and Unforgotten. Both quite adult, quite serious, but if you have the time, then I would recommend checking them out because they were quite good, I think. But anyway, Nicola Walker in this as Liv Chenka, of course, is as great as ever. I'm actually quite a big fan of Liv Chenka, to be honest. She does have her haters, yes, but You know, to me, she is a great companion to the Eighth Doctor. And you know, they are seen having quite a lot of fun in this. We got beyond that sort of like seriousness of Dark Eyes now, and we moved on to slightly more fun Doctor-companion relationship between the two. But it is still very serious at times, this story. I will say that. I'm not saying it's all fun and fluffy. There is quite a lot of seriousness in this story and in Doom Coalition as a whole, but at the same time they are having a bit more fun than they were in Dark Eyes, which is good. Now let's talk about Gallifrey in this story, because the whole story is of course set on Gallifrey. And I was wondering how they were going to do that with the whole 11 escaping prison thing, but actually they do go some very, very interesting directions in this one. He's sort of like manipulating everyone, he's got a big plan going on. And you know, there are some questions being raised as to how he did all this, and that's very good. Questions which will probably be answered later along the line. But in this story itself, there is a lot of fun to be had here on Gallifrey. We have a character, Padrak, who's from the Doctor's past, and they were sort of like friends at the Academy, and that's all very good. Then we've also got someone from the CIA in there as well, of course. And overall, Gallifrey is portrayed very well in this. There's a lot of fun to be had here. I believe Romana is supposed to be the president, although it's explained that she's off-world. So that's all well and good. And you know, there's even some hints of the Time War in there, so that's good too. And sort of like that building up in the background. So yeah, overall, D11 is a great start to Doom Coalition 1 and Doom Coalitions as a whole, I would say. It is very strong, loads of action, loads of intrigue, good characters, and a very good introduction for the title villain, D11. I would give it a 9 out of 10, to be honest. But is it my favourite of the box set? Well, we'll find out that very soon. The Red Lady is written by John Dorney, and actually I believe I forgot to mention that D11 was written by Matt Fitton. Sorry. But yeah, as I was saying, Red Lady is written by John Dorney, who's of course a very strong, very talented Big Finish writer, and a fan favourite as well, and he has written loads of very good stories. This is no exception. Here's the front, here's the spine, here's the back, here's the inside, that's what's behind the disc, and that's what's inside the booklet. It's also the introduction story for our new companion, Helen Sinclair, who is played by Hetty Morahan, and she is very good in this story, I will say. She is of course primary focus of the story, but at the same time, you know, she doesn't detract from the other characters like newly introduced companions can do in their first story. You have quite a few good characters in this story, and you know, John Dorney is very good when it comes to characters. But starting off by talking about Hetty Morahan as Helen Sinclair herself. Helen Sinclair is a very entertaining character. She very much feels like Verity Lambert, and in fact her first scene does remind me of sort of like Verity Lambert in An Adventure in Space of Time quite a bit. She is a woman trapped in a profession dominated by sort of like men. She doesn't like that, obviously, and is trying to sort of like push her way into this field, but keeps getting pushed back and put down by sort of like the men up in higher positions, and you very much feel for her character there. While it could have easily just been her complaining and us getting very annoyed at her just constantly complaining about all these things about inequality and whatnot, because I mean, you know, honestly, if she went on about it too much then it would get annoying. But thankfully John Dorney does it perfectly. He makes the male characters, not all male characters obviously, but sort of like one male character in particular, rather unlikable in the things that he says to her, and therefore you instantly put your sympathy with her. She is a very sympathetic character, that I will say, but also quite a strong character as well, and one with a will to explore and to have adventures, which is sort of like explored in the future stories of the box set, and is also why she chose to travel to Doctor in the end. That and other reasons which I won't get into because that will spoil it. But anyway, the Red Lady itself as a story, it is of course a horror story. In fact, it's been described as a British-Japanese horror story. And, you know, I'm not really that, don't know that much about horror stories and whatnot, or horror films and all that. So I can't really say whether that's an accurate description or not. But I will say it is a very scary story, very spooky. And, you know, it's been a long time since Big Finish have done something properly scary. But this one, I will say, probably is properly scary. What makes it very scary, though, is the concept of the monster in this, the concept of the Red Lady. And it is quite a frightening concept and very well executed. Works very well on audio as well, I will say. And, you know, that is just what creeps you out. And I won't reveal what that is, because it is such a treat to listen to and to sort of have that slow reveal. And it makes it all the more scary if you go into this with no idea what's going on, really. Now let's talk about Paul McGann and Nicola Walker as the Doctor and Livchenko. You know, not much has changed now, but now they've sort of like got an extra character thrown into the mix there with them in the form of Hetty Morahan's Helen Sinclair. And, you know, there is quite a lot of fun going on there between these three characters. And of course, the first two characters work very well together, and it's interesting to sort of like see them as more of a pair now. In fact, Helen does sort of like point out that there are two lunatics in her office at one point, rather than just describing it as one lunatic. And, you know, you sort of like get the idea that she's now much more grouped in with the Doctor in a lot of ways, and that's quite interesting from her character's perspective, sort of like how people outside view her now, rather than viewing her as the normal one and the Doctor as the insane one. They're now both viewed as the insane ones, although they're not quite insane, obviously. As for this story's placement in the overall box set, there is sort of like a thread running through this, but it is very standalone at the same time, which means if you want to listen to a scary story, you can just pop this one in and have a listen to it without having to go through re-listening to the 11 and whatnot. It is quite easy, and that's one thing about this box set, is that each story does stand on its own very nicely, but at the same time forming a collective whole. Some people might not like that, I personally do, but yeah, just to each their own, I guess. Overall, I will give The Red Lady a 10 out of 10. It is that good. It honestly is an amazing horror story. It truly is. Great characters in it, and overall it's just a lot of, well, it's very fun to listen to, but also very scary at the same time. And who doesn't love being scared? Moderately. Now we move on from this to this. Here's the cover for the Galileo trap. Here's the spine, the back, here's the inside, that's what's behind the disc, and that's what's inside the booklet. Now then, the Galileo trap for me is unfortunately where this box set takes a step down. It's been very good up to this point. I mean, I've given a 9 and a 10 for the two previous stories, but here we get to the Galileo trap, and unfortunately it's not as good. I mean, it's still good. There are still quite a lot of enjoyable moments in this, especially seeing Helen go back into history. There's sort of like, obviously, her working at a museum, sort of like having worked around history all her life and now being in history itself. That's quite fascinating for her, and her reaction to that is very good, although she doesn't do much during the actual story, unfortunately. And you know, when you've got two companions now rather than just one, and both of them aren't really doing that much, because Liv unfortunately isn't doing much either in this, you do begin to think, what's the point? Which is unfortunate. However, Paul McGann does do an awful lot in this as the Doctor. He gets some very good things to do at the same time, but still, it doesn't feel like much is going on. That's my own problem with the story. It doesn't feel like much is going on. And while last time, even though it wasn't carrying on the main story, I was still very intrigued because the story itself was very interesting. But during this, you know, it's sort of like it's very slowly carrying on the main story, but sort of like the subplot that's in this one just doesn't work for me, and it very much does make it feel a bit like a filler episode, which is unfortunate. And while admittedly the last one, The Red Lady, was a filler episode, it was a highly enjoyable filler episode. This one, however, wasn't, and that makes the fact that it is filler even more evident. Let's quickly talk about John Woodvine as Galileo Galilei. And, well, he's just wonderful in the role, and he really does make Galileo a really likeable character. You know, he's sort of like got that old man mentality to him, where he's just sort of like grumpy, doesn't care much for different things going on, and you know, very much suits sort of like Galileo around this time period, so that's quite nice. And but he very much has a warmth to his performance as well, especially when he's around Helen and Liv, and you know, also when he's around the Doctor as well, and you get a reference to his voice changing, him seeming younger, which presumably means that he was with a different incarnation. Maybe that story will be told one day, I don't know, but it is quite exciting nevertheless to have that opportunity left out there. It also makes good use of the fact that Galileo is blind at this point in his life, and that's very nice, and it sort of like links into Galileo himself, he's not just there as like a historical figure in the background, he does actually work into the plot, which I think is very nice. But overall, as I've already said, the plot he works into just isn't that interesting to me, which is where this story just falters really. It's just rather dull. I mean, the monsters themselves, which you can see on the cover there, sort of like they look very generic, and in the story they do act very generic as well. And I don't know, I was just expecting a bit more from this. I mean, the period history is nicely set up, but they hardly use any of it beyond Galileo. So unfortunately, the Galileo trap is only getting a 5 out of 10 from me. Rather a big drop from the Red Lady and the 11, but that's just the way this story goes. Will the story pick up again in the last part? Well, let's find out with the Satanic Mill. Here's the front, here's the spine, here's the back, here's the inside. That's what's behind the disc. It is an advertisement for Doom Coalition 2, and I will talk about that in a little bit. And to finish off, here we have the inside of the booklet. So this is Edward Collier's Big Finish debut, and he has a big task because he has got to finish off really big 8th Doctor box set. And, well, unfortunately he doesn't do it as well. Admittedly, it is an improvement on the Galileo trap, I will say that. But at the same time, I feel this suffers from a similar issue of the plot being very dull in places. Now, the plot does go a lot faster than the previous one did, and because obviously it's tying everything together from the previous 3, it does very much fit in with the overall arc of the box set and of Doom Coalition as a whole. You know, it sort of like sets up some seeds for the future, which is very nice. But at the same time, I just feel like it's not the most interesting of stories in its own right. I mean, it's sort of like the setting of it is very dull, and that doesn't help with the story itself, because obviously Big Finish relies on the imagination a lot. And if you've got this very dull setting, you sort of like imagine these very dull visuals, and in that sense, that dullness just sort of like, well, makes it dull, I guess, is the best way to put it, which is unfortunate. Also, the supporting characters aren't really that good. You've only really got one who's called Mr. Payne, and he doesn't unfortunately do that much. I mean, he's an okay character in his own right, but I just feel like there needed to be more there in the background, just like help it go along. Liv and Helen, once again, don't get to do much, unfortunately. They're just sort of like there to sort of like as leverage over the Doctor for the 11 to use, which is unfortunate. And oddly enough, I don't know why, but there are parts of this which remind me of The Underwater Menace, which isn't a good thing. Thankfully, Mark de Bernard does a wonderful job as the 11 once again. Admittedly, his performance is not as good as it was in the 11, but nevertheless, he is still very, very strong and very enjoyable. He is a great villain, he truly is. And I'm happy to hear that he will be back for Doom Coalition 2, and hopefully he'll be back beyond that as well, because he is a wonderful villain, and of course there is the opportunity to have stories set before Doom Coalition, because the Doctor obviously knew him before and hunted him down before, in at least his 7th incarnation, maybe before that, and I'd like to see those stories explored. This one, you know, as good as Mark Bernard is, unfortunately, it's sort of like reached this climax, which admittedly does tie everything together so far up very nicely, and we do get a good conclusion in that sense, but at the same time, it's just not very well executed conclusion at that, and I'm not sure what went wrong in this. It's sort of like, it's got all the ingredients for it to be good, but for some reason it just isn't that good. I mean, we've got Gallifrey mythology in there, we've got some stuff going on with that, we've got the wonderful villain in there, we've got the 8th Doctor, very strong in there, we've got 2 very good companions in there, but they don't get to do much, so overall it just feels like it's a lot of good things coming together to make something that's not so good. And that is why I am giving the Satanic Mill only a 6 out of 10, because it had a lot of potential. But I don't know why Edward Collier just didn't manage to pull this one off, in my opinion. So no, Doom Coalition as a whole, 2 very wonderful stories, 2 very strong stories at the start, but unfortunately 2 not so strong stories at the end. One rather bad, one okay, but had a lot more potential than it managed to reach. So then, of course, would I recommend you pick it up? At £40? Probably not, unfortunately. Would I recommend you pick it up if it goes on offer at £20? Absolutely, because those first 2 stories are definitely worth picking up. And hopefully Big Finish will improve on this one with Doom Coalition 2. And, you know, if you want to pick up that, it's probably best to pick up this and follow the story all the way through. And speaking of Doom Coalition 2, I'd say it looks very good actually. You know, Ruper Song may be putting some people off, but personally I'm quite excited to see where they go with that, what they do with that. And also the return of the Vord looks very strong. Obviously Nicholas Briggs in there. writing that story, and overall it looks very entertaining, and hopefully we'll get to see more about what the Doom Coalition actually is, what these villains are actually up to, so that should be a lot of fun. So overall I have nothing left to say, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye everyone.
Your home planet?
Gallifrey. It usually starts with them all pointing guns at me and goes downhill from there. Oh, hello, Padrak.
Her hand, she's reaching out to take off her mask. You can see that, can't you?
I couldn't help noticing, just then.
Yes.
Another personality emerged.
I take it you've come to me because of my particular affliction.
You don't understand! It's her face! Her face! Her terrible face!
What's that noise?
Can't be. Liv, run!
You're Helen Sinclair, language scholar, British Museum.
You know my work?
No, I read the sign on the door. But that doesn't matter. Helen, this tablet is vital to the safety of the cosmos.
The man calls himself the Doctor.
What? Is he here?
Galileo, how good to see you again.
Commence dissection.
What? Save me! They're coming!
Liv Shaker. She's right here.
Where will this contraption take us?
To the end of the line, Mr. Payne. To the end of the line.